So here we go. Another question. Are psychics connecting with consciousness when they speak to people who left this world hundreds of years ago and may have already reincarnated into another body? In the last video, I talked about our consciousness and our oneness with everything and everyone. Very briefly, I talked about it. Psychics, intuitive readers, people who have that ability, and I want to say that very specifically, have that ability because they believe they have that ability. They have faith that they can do that. They've had experiences that show them when they do that, they can validate it to themselves. Everybody has the same ability. Everyone taps into the other side all the time. To give you an example, have you ever been going about your day, just happened out of the blue to think of someone that has passed away? Just out of the blue, this thought pops in your head, right? And you're like, well, wonder why I thought of them. Do you think it might be them? Do you think it might be them touching base, saying, hey, I'm still around? Have you ever had, and I find that a lot of people have this next experience where they'll be talking to somebody, and as they're talking, a word will pop into their head to use in a sentence. And it's a word they've never used before. And they're like, well, why'd that pop up? And then they go back and they look up the word. It was the exact perfect fit for the moment. It was the exact perfect word to fill in that moment. I'm sure many of you have had that experience because I keep bumping into people who've had that same experience. Well, what is that? That is you tapping into the universal consciousness and pulling out the precise word that's based on the concept in your head. That's you doing something psychic, right? You ever walked into a room and experienced that a fight had just happened and you're like, ooh, this room doesn't feel right, right? That's a psychic ability. That's you sensing the room and the energy in the room. That's you, and knowing full well what it was. So you've got clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance. There's all kinds of clairs, right? I personally like eclairs because they're tasty. But there's all kinds of levels of psychic skill or psychic ability. But every one of us has them in some form. Have you ever heard someone speak and you just know that what they're speaking is right or wrong? Have you ever had that moment where you're like, well, this person is totally spot on. And you're like, yeah, you are tapping into something bigger than yourself. And as I said in a previous video, time is a construct of man. So tapping into that universal energy consciousness and talking to somebody from hundreds of years ago, and even though they may have reincarnated, that comes back to the concept of reincarnation and what is it, Pardon me. I'm going to make you guys fall asleep. Create the yawning movement. We're all going to start yawning all the time. Reincarnation. What is reincarnation? Reincarnation, in my mind, and my experiences have been profound in my life, but in my mind, reincarnation is more about probably having spent a lot of time in that life and tapping into the consciousness and being probably closer to that vibration so that you can experience it. So are there other people in the world who might have the same kind of memories that I do? Sure. Do I? Because I also don't believe it doesn't matter who you were; it only matters who you are. So we all know that. But as far as tapping into the consciousness, I think that we are all one. And anybody can tap into the consciousness at any given moment. But it's just a matter of getting out of our own way, getting out of our own false beliefs of our inability, getting out of the way of fear and judgment and guilt, setting those things aside and getting into the I am clairvoyant, I am clairaudient, I am clairsentient, I am, connected to the divine, I am, right? That's how it's done. And when I look at your question here, are psychics connecting with the consciousness when they speak to people who left this world hundreds of years ago and may have already reincarnated into another body? Yes. The answer is yes. They are tapping into the universal consciousness that we all are a part of. And when you get into past lives, like I said, I had 19 psychics tell me about that very specific past life. I think that in many forms, and I should talk about this on another video. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the synchronicities of my life and this John of New thing, because I was talking about this with my best friend last night, and we were both just blown away at everything that had happened. So I need to make another video about that. But yes, they're all connecting with the one consciousness that is us all. And, as Jeshua would say, the Father and I are one, right? He also said, I'm the Son of God, you are the children of God. I say this a lot, but the only difference between those two is that one of them claimed it and the other ones hadn't yet. And so you need to step into the idea that you can do anything. Nothing is impossible for you. And that when you're looking at the consciousness that we're tapping into from hundreds of years ago, the idea of hundreds of years ago is based upon linear time. And linear time is a construct of man. It all happens at once, in my opinion. There's no way that I would have been able to have the experience I had with the regression were it not for it happening in that moment. Because I had full sensory awareness. I could smell, I could hear, I could feel the air on my body. It was a full sensory experience. And so hundreds of years ago, reincarnated bodies, everything is one consciousness. And, you can get into the Akashic records and all those kind of labels for it, but the Father and I are one. The Father and you are one. And I don't like to use the phrase Father, but that's the one that everyone knows. God and I are one. God and you are one. And because we're all one, we all can tap into each other. So there you go. Have a great day. Talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.